Yeah, but I guess it is a main event time.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we're gonna crack open another one.
yeah, I'm gonna just see if we can get this on camera here. Just
Yeah.
it is Notzilla for our main event, and if you can, it might be a good one to. This is a good movie to definitely have a cold one with. It's a really funny movie.
Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was like extremely impressed and surprised with like how good this was. Like, it had no right, but
No,
it did.
no.
It did. It was like so good. Like, I was like, oh, it's a kaiju parody. Like, is it gonna be cheesy? Yeah, it's a little cheesy, but it also
They lean into it though.
They lean into it. They poke fun at it. Like, that's the whole point of it, and it was such a fun watch. Honestly, I thought it was hysterical. The reoccurring gags that they have, they just really they hit it out of the park. This was written by and directed by Mitch Teemley. It takes place in Cincinnati, Ohio, for most of the movie, and the cast is just hysterical too. It's Shirley You Jest, who was played by, where did I put the cast here?
Yeah, I don't see it in the notes.
I thought I put it there. I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's all good.
But
Like everyone's name is like a pun or a joke or
yes,
something like that. Like you have Richard Blowhart or Dick Blowhard.
yeah,
You know, like
yeah. It's a really fun movie. We had a great time with this, and we are also reviewing the comic after we do the movie. We're doing a little different this time because we figure we'll cover all the plot points while we're covering the movie, and then we can get into a quick little coverage on the comic. But what did you? I love the movie. When I saw this, I was like, you gotta watch it. I'm like, you're gonna have a good time with this one. Did you watch it with Carrie?
Yeah, so I ended up watching this movie with my wife, and I think she liked it. She's definitely laughed at a couple of things, but yeah, no, it was pretty good. The movie just starts off with funny gags. You have your classic '50s couple making out on like the cliff in like the '50s car.
Yes.
But like the man has a fake mustache, and whenever they kiss, it swaps over from one to the other.
Yes.
A pretty funny gag over there.
Yeah, and then after that, it cuts to Notzilla. We don't see the monster. It's the Mama Notzilla walking by. They're like, "Oh no, it's a kaiju, a giant monster!" And the car falls off the cliff while they're kissing, and it lands, and now the mustache is on the girl, and they start kissing again, and the guy's like, "Groovy, my car landed perfectly fine." And that's when it cuts to one of our main characters, Professor Ichiro Honda, clearly a play on Ishiro Honda, the famous Godzilla director.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so he's like,
he's a paleontologist.
Yeah, he's a paleontologist. And they're like, "Oh, so we're gonna defeat Notzilla," and he's like, "Wait, no." He's like, "It's a peaceful kaiju. It's like it drank fermented berries, and that's why it grew this large. It's not a violent creature." And they're like, "No, we're gonna defeat it." So he's like traumatized, like war, like PTSD, and
they're like, "We must kill our proctologist." He's like, "I'm a paleontologist, a proctologist, a doctor who looks at butt." He's like, "That doesn't matter." Yeah. So they're like, "We're gonna kill him, Girdly Man, out of the way." So they kill Mama Notzilla. He picks up an egg, and he's like, "We're gonna go to America. I'm gonna go to Ohio." And he's got this whole book, how to learn American English and how to be an American. he flies to Ohio.
The book is How to Learn English and Save the World or something.
Oh, yes. Be an American hero or something like that.
Which is, again, pretty funny. So he's flying. He has to go to the bathroom.
The classic airplane hijinks.
So as he's in there, he sees his dad in the mirror for some reason. Now, again, this is like the next day.
Yeah.
And he's getting like flashbacks to like his disapproving father. And like while he's getting scolded by his father, accidentally flushes the egg down the toilet.
And it's a big egg. It's like the size of like...
But it's that airplane toilet, you know?
Yeah,
like
it's that airplane toilet.
It's got that super suction.
Yeah. So it gets pulled out of the airplane and shot into the Cincinnati River. And then we cut to our next main character, Dr. Shirley Ugest, and of course Dr. Blowheart. She's in the elevator talking about the upcoming experiment and test run they have going that day, and he's there shaving and fantasizing that she's coming on to him, and he's like, please, this is inappropriate behavior for work. And she's like, what? I was just going over these nuclear reactor charts. And he's like, yeah, whatever, just don't let it happen again. And
it's they say it's like a 2-hour elevator ride down to like the lab, and then when they get out of the elevator, he's still shaving.
Yeah.
He has a plug-in razor that's not plugged into anything.
That is a running gag though too for this.
Yeah, everybody shaves in the because you have all that time.
Yeah. So they get down to Snuggy's headquarters, the super secret reactor control room. Snuggy stands for Secret Nuclear Underground Government Installation, SNUGI. And we have all the doctors there. We get introduced to the team. There's Dr. Block, Bjorn Block, Jacques Boutte, Dr. Boutte, Mort Shortman, Hugh Mungus. And they're preparing for this test. They were going to do this whole reactor thing. They've had 66 reactor meltdowns so far. Well, reactor 65, and this is going to be the 66th test. And we see all these nuclear reactor chutes underground, and they're like, all right, let's give it a shot, and let's put on some safety devices. And they just put on sunglasses.
Yeah.
And they do the science, and the reactors melt down, and they fail again.
But he's like, this is the biggest meltdown yet, though.
Yes, that is the biggest boom yet. Way to go, guys. We did a good job. Like, they're not supposed to be causing meltdowns here.
So, clearly he's absolutely incompetent.
Yeah.
They end up having to go up to the top floor, and they're going to, like, they're doing nuclear cleanup. And while they're by the Cincinnati River, they see the egg.
Yes.
So she's like, this could be a dinosaur egg, and
it could be reptilian. This is one of the funniest lines. It could be reptilian. He goes, maybe it could be Democrat.
So they go to the chili shop, and they're talking about the egg, and in the background there's Ichiro Honda, and he's getting his chili from the waitress, who's also a reporter.
Pearl Stringer.
Yes.
She's a beat undercover reporter, and she gets the scoop on everything.
Yeah, she literally knows everything.
Yeah. Which her gag is pretty funny. We'll see a lot of her throughout this movie. So they're at the table eating their food, ordering, and Ichiro's at the counter kind of just eating there, and they're talking about the egg. And Pearl comes along. She's like, hey, you should talk to this Dr. Honda. He's a paleontologist. And, of course, Dr. Blowheart is an idiot. Throughout this movie, we learn, even though he leads the team, he goes, He's like, how come sometimes I'm backed up for days and other times I erupt like Mount Rushmore?
Which isn't even a volcano.
It's not a volcano. But that's how stupid he is. And the whole gag of him being a complete incompetent idiot throughout the movie is just great. Yeah. He's just like this like overly chauvinistic dick. Which is partly why he's got his name Richard Blowhart. And Shirley is like, that's a proctologist. He's a paleontologist. So she pulls out the egg. He's like, oh my god, it's my Notzilla. He goes, oh, I mean a Notzilla. And so of course the proctologist thing still goes on. He goes, it's a Notzillosaurus, and they're usually the size of a man in a rubber suit. But if exposed to alcohol, it grow very big.
Yes.
And that's when they're like, all right, well, we got to get out of here. So Shirley goes home, Honda goes wherever, and for some reason, Blowhart takes the egg back with him to the Snuggie headquarters. And he's just in his office, hanging out, cracking beers for the night. And Shirley and Honda... Ichiro, they go for a walk down by the river where she had found the egg, and Pearl's kind of there, just in the bushes, hiding, watching them as they talk about it.
Yeah,
and it's during this scene you can kind of see the two of them are hitting it off, and she's got to think for him, he's got to think for her. They're talking science. She's finally talking to a fellow scientist for once, and not Dr. Blowhart.
Yeah, somebody who actually like respects her work and values her opinion and everything. Cut to Dr. Blowhart, and he is decided he's going to start pouring beers on the egg because that's the state where he is.
Yeah. And next thing you know, the egg hatches, Notzilla pops out, and he starts giving Notzilla some beers. And cut to the next morning, Shirley is there, and she sees Notzilla, and they get paged down for the next experiment, but there's just a case of beers left in the office. And while they're walking down to meet the fellow scientists, the scientists that are there waiting for them are Doctors Mothra, Rodan, and Dr. Gorgo from Great Britain. Which I thought was great nods to some other kaiju. And even in... forgot to mention Dr. Blowhart's. He's got Attack of the 50-foot female college student with a diploma or something? The 60-foot woman with a college degree.
I must have missed that one.
Yes, there's a poster in the background. And he even brings it up again. He brings it up himself. He's like, oh, this is just like the attack of a 60-foot woman with a college degree. So they're in the office, and then next thing you know, there's some rumbling. It's not from a meltdown. They didn't even run their tests yet. They're like, where'd it come from my office? They go to their office, and they find a big hole in the wall, and Notzilla has ran out onto a field. And he goes, I have some questions. First is, what's that hole in the wall? And second, aren't we 500 stories underground? Why is there a field out there?
Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing. Because I was like, is this like a continuity error? I'm like watching this. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And then they bring it up.
And like the hole in the wall is like almost like, like when the coyote falls through like a...
Yeah, Wile E. Coyote.
Or like runs through a wall. It's just kind of like... Pfft.
Perfect outline of Notzilla. Yeah.
So then they're like, oh boy, we better go out. How much beer has he had? He's already... way bigger than he should be at this age. And they sit out. They're back at the chili restaurant, and they're like, we gave him beer. He's like, I gave him beer. And he's like, this is only the beginning. And that becomes one of his reoccurring lines, is this is only the beginning.
Yeah.
Dr. Blowhart. So they're at the restaurant talking about what they could do about Notzilla, when Pearl finds another link to help them out in the restaurant. This chili restaurant is just like the mecca of knowledge here for Pearl. So she pulls over this farmer looking guy that is the busboy apparently, and he's like, my grandpa said something came to his house and stole all his beers. So they're like, all right, that sounds like a lead, let's go there. So they head over to the grandfather's house, and it's like this is supposed to take place in like 1968, and the house looks like a modern day like California home. It does not look like a 1960s home to me that they arrive at, but they get there. There's a giant footprint. I believe it was filled with Notzilla pee.
Yes.
Because that's what Ichiro needed to collect. And they open the garage, and it's just filled with like empty beer cans and cases. And it's like they're like, how much beer does he have? And they're like, oh, he keeps like about 80 cases. Because he likes to have them around in case some girls come over. This guy's grandfather. And so they find the footprint there, and Dr. Blowhart bends over, picks it up, and he tastes it. He's like, it tastes like beer, only a little salty. And Dr. Honda and Shirley are cracking up because they just know he just drank pee. And Ichiro Honda collects the sample. He's like, all right, I'll be able to synthesize a cure to shrink him back down. But Dr. Blowhart still wants to be the hero of the story. So they're like, we gotta track down Notzilla. So they get on like this snuggy special boat, and the whole farmer busboy's pissed. He's like, I want to get revenge for my grandfather. He destroyed his beer and killed him. He thinks the grandfather's dead. The busboy thing is pretty hysterical, what happens with him. So they head out on the boat, they bring this special radar, and for some reason Pearl is still following them everywhere, and she hides inside this radar, and she's in the radar with a little notepad like this, and she's just like,
She's getting everything.
She's just getting everything. Everywhere you go, that's her. So they're on the boat, they're on the Cincinnati River. Blowhart thinks they're out on the ocean.
Yeah.
But finally Notzilla appears and is just docile, and the busboy's pissed at Notzilla, but then all of a sudden his grandfather just appears on the boat and is like, chill out, bro. And him and Notzilla like become like BFFs, and the busboy's just like surfing Notzilla's back and just chilling with him.
Yeah. One of the other gags that's gonna pop up is they try to call in the army on Notzilla, and he calls.
First, he calls the Pentagon, but they're dealing with the Cuban Missile Crisis, so they forward him to the Southwest East Ohio Pentagon.
And they get this like incompetent like general.
General Bogus. He's a Frigidaire general. He's in charge, not a brigadier general, a Frigidaire general. He's in charge of all the refrigeration operations for the army.
Yes.
He's a 2.5 star general, but he keeps claiming to be a 4-star.
Yes. And whenever he says 4-star, on the bottom in subtitles it says 2.5 star.
Yes, that's also one of the running gags throughout this movie. Is there's constantly subtitles and like the typing across the screen like a typewriter to tell you about the person, and it's correcting them, and yeah.
Yeah. So
the subtitles itself of the movie are also just like a complete comedy gold. Also.
Yes. So instead of actually like doing anything about this, he decides it's going to be great for his nephew to make a movie about it.
And then about him being the hero of the movie.
Yeah, so just throughout the entire movie, you just have this film crew with real soldiers being put behind it. And they're just doing all these stupid things to just try to film a movie.
But they also they don't use real soldiers. There is soldiers, but they also have
actors,
mostly fake soldiers too, which are like the Green Army men.
Yes,
that's what they put out there on the field to confront Notzilla.
But they have real soldiers, and they're giving them like orders, like, "Oh, go do this, go do that."
They're like, they're getting ordered, and then there's one of the scenes where like, "Oh, we got to make it look like we have an army marching. So you see, like, they're like walking by the camera, and then they like bend down, and they in front of the camera they walk back, and the same like 5 guys walk by the camera again.
It's probably one of the better running gags that they have going on with it.
I mean, there's just so many gags in this thing. It's great.
And you know, we end up getting like a couple of really good shots of the Notzilla costume.
Yeah,
and it's actually a really good suit.
Yeah.
They have like this zipper clearly visible.
Yeah, like right under the neck.
Like they make like the actual like pull for it like comically large.
Yes.
And then the spine, I don't know if it's supposed to look like...
It looks like
Sour Patch Kids or like those like dolls you'd cut into paper.
It looks like a combination of paper dolls and Sour Patch Kids, the spines on Notzilla.
Yes. It was like a really good suit, though. Like,
it is. It's a nice looking design. Although it's got the gags, it's a good looking design.
Yeah, solid suit.
So Notzilla appears and confronts the military. The rockets literally just bounce off Notzilla. Most of the military is toys, and it's just knocking the toys around like they're cars, like they're toys, and most of them are. And then he's flicking the toy soldiers over with his claw. And then the jets come, and they're on the string, and Notzilla just grabs them and cuts them with his fingers. And they're like, "We got him!" And they're like, "Great, let's go get this developed." And then they leave. They're like, and the army guys are like, "He got us." And all they care about is getting this film developed. And Dr. Blowhart shows up on the scene a few minutes late, and he's like, "Where the hell are they? What's going on here?" He's like, "What kind of general is this?" He's like, "I showed up 10 minutes late, and there was nothing but toys there." And he's like, "We had a little trouble with your monster. He broke through our Dookie defense, and now he's headed for Cincinnati." So he's like, "Do you have a special weapon?" He's like, "Yeah, I have a super secret atomic weapon called the super secret Uber Fission Mega Blaster, but we need to get it bigger." He's like, "It looks really small, but he's like, if you bend down and look closer, it'll look a little big." I think that's a dick joke, right?
I think so. So during all this stuff and all this drunken debauchery, you know, Notzilla's going around. He's taking like the beer can that would be like on top of like a fake building, like a fake beer can on like a beer distributor. He'll take it off and he'll drink all the beer out of it.
Yeah, it's like a beer water tower.
Yeah, like there's a lot of running gags like that. And Ichiro Honda he goes to one of the breweries that gets hit, and he's like, "I want to create a cure," and all this stuff. And one of the brewmasters is like, "You know, one day I dreamed of moving to America and learning English and saving the country." And he's like, "I even bought this book, and it's the same book that Ichiro Honda has." So they bond over that, and then they start trying to brew the cure for Notzilla to start shrinking.
Yeah. And he also confronts Blowhart a little before this as well, back at the Snuggy base, where Blowhart's like, "Listen, I'm going to kill him." He's like, "I don't care. And I'm going to use this fission, and it's going to cause all this nuclear radiation in Cincinnati, and it's going to be uninhabitable for like 50 years. But he's like, "You know what? I'm going to be the hero, though."
Yes.
And Ichiro is like, "I wish I took karate so I could fight this guy." He's like, "But I did study and master in haiku." So they have like a haiku battle. And Ichiro's actually like hitting him with real things, and like Blowhart's trying to just say like nonsense. Like he goes, I think one of the things he tries to use is a haiku. He goes, "Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of," and then he gets like knocked off, and then he goes, "Here I sit broken hearted, try to," and then he gets hit with another haiku as Ichiro finishes him off. And then that's when he sits back off to the brewery, and we get a little funny scene of a train, the classic Godzilla stopping the train, but this time it's a toy model train with sticker people on the side, like the silhouettes of people, and he's peeling off the stickers from the train and dropping them. But then it just shows these random people falling from the sky. People are loving it though. They're like, "Oh, this is so cool." And it's a pretty funny scene. And then Ichiro goes and sees Shirley at her apartment. They're watching some old samurai movie, and she just has this vision, this dream of herself and Ichiro in the city, and Blowheart's just destroying it. And that's when she realized Blowheart's the villain. We need to stop him. So then Ichiro heads out to the brewery. She gives him this special fission brew to help fission. I forgot what it was, like a fission recipe that'll help him with the brew as well to help reverse it. So that's when him and the brewmaster get to work, while the Snuggie team is off to building a larger scale gun. Shirley gets a call from Pearl Stringer, our reporter, and she informs him that Dr. Blowheart's not actually Blowheart, but a child actor that goes by the name, what was his name? I think it was like Don Draper. Yeah, Don Draper was his name. And he played a child prodigy on the show. I forgot what the character was, though.
Yeah, it was like a fake... It was basically like a Doogie Howser.
Yeah, it was like a Doogie Howser thing.
But like the funny part is I think like he ended up being the valet, because he's a failed child actor, ended up being like the valet for real Blowheart.
Yes, and he just stole his identity.
Yes. So
we've had a child actor running a nuclear facility and blowing things up just for fun. So they're like, he's got to be stopped. So Notzilla starts his rampage on the city, even though it's not really a rampage. He's kind of just walking about, drinking beers and farting and burping out fire. Not on purpose.
Just the beers.
Just the beers. Yeah. And there's a whole little scene where like, oh, look at this lady. She's like, they're like, oh, I've seen this before. It's just a couple like inside their apartment window watching the whole attack. And they're like, oh, she's gonna just stop her car and get out for no reason now. And they're like, watch, she's gonna trip next for no reason. And she trips. She's like, why does this happen? And he's like,
pick her up now.
He's like, yeah, now he's gonna pick her up. And they're like, oh wait, no, that's not her. That's just a doll. And then it zooms in and it literally is just like a doll. And they're like, no, wait, no, that's her. And she's like, oh, this must be what Fay Ray felt like with King Kong. And she's like, that's not good, Notzilla, put me down. And she's like, get rid of that beer. So she throws the beer, and he burps again. There's an explosion, and then there's just a guy who's barbecuing in the middle of the street after the explosion. And then we cut to two other guys that are smoking cigarettes, and one of the guys like, he's like, I need a light. And then he burps and lights the cigarette, and then he farts, and the fire comes out of his butt. He's like, and then they get like charred faced, and they're like, it's not so much the fire that I minded. And the other guys, he's like, yeah, it's where it came from. They're like, yeah. And Shirley runs back to Snuggie, and I was like, we can't let this thing go off. She's like, I found a new formula for warm fusion that could stop and reverse the work. And she's like, I put everybody's names in it. And then we get a little montage of Ichiro and the brewmaster still working on the beer, and they finally finish it, and they hop it into the car, and then we cut to Blowheart for the big final showdown. He's got his gun, and he's ready to set it off, and just when he goes to set it off, it fails, and Shirley shows up, and he's like, Shirley girlie. That's his other running gig. He keeps calling her Shirley girlie, and she's like, It's Dr. Shirley. And she's like, I'm not just a piece of meat. And another gag through this movie is he kept calling Dr. Block Swedish, and he gets his little punches. He's like, I'm not Swedish, I'm black. He's like, I never approved you being black. God. And they're like, that's why we don't like you. And then that's when Shirley shows up and kicks him. And we got General Bogus still there trying to film his movie while this is all going on. Notzilla appears with a tree a bouquet of flowers for her. She puts it down. Ichiro shows up with his big beer can in the pickup truck with the brewmaster to get him back to normal size. Notzilla picks up the beer, drinks it, and shrinks back down to normal. But Dr. Butte, as we've seen throughout the movie, she's kind of had a little crush on him. Donnie, as she calls him by his child role name.
Yeah, at first that's supposed to be like the big reveal to like get her to like change sides.
Yeah.
And then they tell her, and she's like, I loved that show.
Yeah. And the thing is, she had a fake mustache through the whole movie too. Like, it was a woman, but like they were pretending like she was a man. And in this scene, she rips off the mustache and reveals that she's in love with him, and that people do stupid things for love. And she had left one rod still in the machine that should be enough to shrink him. And they're like, we're still going to destroy Notzilla, even if it causes 50 years of radiation. He's like, it's still for our good. And everyone blocks Notzilla with this whole, I'm Notzilla, I'm Notzilla.
Yeah.
And then Ichiro launches the beer can with the truck into the air, and it reflects the blast back at Blowhart and Butte. And they're all in shock. The day is saved. And then we cut to the end, where we see Blowhart and Butte in a pink-looking car that looks like a Barbie car. And it turns out that it is, because they've been shrunk down with the ray to miniature-sized people. And Blowhart is now Nodzilla's toy pet thing with Butte. And Notzilla is like Shirley and Ichiro's child. And he's like, I never said there was one egg. And then it ends with the big reveal that there's 3 eggs.
Yeah, so...
But I forgot to mention, sorry, prior to all that aftermath, another general appears, General Specific.
Yes.
And she says that she wants Honda to become the new giant monster protection program leader. And she was protection, and Ichiro's protection from what? And she was sequels. And Shirley gets promoted and takes over Blowhart's position.
Yes.
But it ends with, this is the end, or is this only the beginning? And that's one of the lines that Blowhart said throughout the movie. He kept saying, this is only the beginning. And they're like, how many times is he going to say that?
I thought it was a pretty funny movie. We left out a lot. Like, we mentioned a lot of the gags, but we left out so much. You guys have to go see this movie.
Yes.
Again, it's available digital, free with ads in a lot of places. And also, Blu-ray's not very expensive at all. It's decent Blu-ray release. It's a very basic one, so I didn't do a review for it. So this is going to be the review now. Good release. It comes with just the movie and the trailer on it, and the disc, nice printed with the picture on it. It is a burned disc. It's not a pressed disc. Some people might mind that, but other people, they think that a burned disc might actually hold up better to disc rot. There's a lot of conversation about physical media and what's going to last the longest. I say just get it if you like it, So, that's the Blu-ray review. And, go check out the movie. It's a good time. And now we're going to cover the comic book.
Yeah.